Because if we just focus on too many things in the sense of what we did wrong, then we're just going to end up doing nothing.
Yeah. Can we? Here, I'm going to interject.
Wow.
Take that for your podcast clip.
Wow. Joe, how's it going, my man?
It's going great.
Awesome.
It's a snow globe weather day outside. It's my favorite.
It is. It is a true Buffalo day.
Mm-hmm.
You had a big celebration today at Seneca One. What was going on today at Seneca One?
Yeah, just the M&T Bank Bills playoff rally. They had the DJ going. They had the drum line.
Wow.
Daryl Talley was there signing autographs and taking pictures with people from the Super Bowl era Bills.
Wow, OG.
So it was pretty packed there for a little bit too, and of course M&T giving away a ton of branded Bills swag as well.
Oh, sweet.
Really cool just to see that building starting to fill up again. Seneca One.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it was just such a linchpin of downtown for a while, and then vacant, and really kind of became an eyesore on the horizon a little bit when it was just sitting there for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And just so grateful to see where it's at right now, and grateful to be a part of it.
For sure. There's a ton of new businesses coming in there. I know that 43 North is in there. I know that Tech Buffalo is there. I just spoke to Cam last week. He was an awesome guest. But what are some new exciting things going on there that just kind of started up?
Yeah, it's we're recording this during the welcome week for 43 North. So the five companies, the $1 million investment last year, are in the process of moving in and just getting to meet everybody in the Buffalo community, figure out what resources they're going to need, what connections they can make to grow their business here long term.
Mm-hmm.
Really exciting time there. And then Highmark, Blue Cross Blue Shield is actually moving a lot of their operations over to the top 5 floors of Seneca One. So believe when that happens in the spring, the building's going to be 100% leased out and occupied, and has not been in a very long time. So
wow, that's awesome.
Really exciting milestone on the horizon for them.
Yeah, and it's a huge building too. So to fill that up is pretty cool. So we're talking about Seneca One a little bit. Lighthouse Technology Services is in Seneca One building right downtown. Tell us a little bit about what you guys are doing over at Lighthouse and what you guys kind of, the mission, so to speak.
Yeah, so real broadly about us, our vision is to be the most inspiring business partner in Buffalo, and that's a pretty lofty thing to be chasing.
Yeah.
We are in the business of recruiting and managed services to support businesses of all sizes across Western New York. Lighthouse started actually 20 years ago this year. Don Harris, our founder, was a CIO who was having a hard time finding tech talent, and decided to start up a recruiting agency. So lots of enterprise companies in Buffalo would bring in contractors to support full-time staff for certain projects. That was the core of our business for a really long time, and still is the vast majority of our business. We started going into IT services in 2017. Obviously, lots of managed IT services providers in Buffalo. It was a really interesting opportunity for us to dive into that too, because we did so much time recruiting technology talent for other businesses. This was one of the first forays into recruiting technology talent for our team, and really, finding people who align with our values, but also can provide incredible service for businesses around Buffalo. So we've been at that for, about 6-7 years now with the managed IT services. That's starting to pick up a lot of steam right now. We're really starting to find a good market fit with, what types of companies we're able to serve effectively, and we're a great partner for them. They're a great client for us. Really starting to pick up steam there. And then we're starting to look into some other service expansions as well, which are just naturally have come up over time. And people who might be doing IT services with us have said, hey, we realize you have certain talents in X. Would you be interested in supporting us with that? And we're building out some programs to do that.
That's incredible. So you really want to build not only the service and the quality of what you're providing Buffalo, but you're expanding the services as well in terms of what you're offering.
Yeah, we really want to challenge people to think differently about the types of solutions that can support their business.
Yeah.
We really want to inspire people in that process as well. We have a lot of just really talented people across technology, talent, and marketing, and there's a lot of interesting overlaps there as well too. So absolutely.
When Cam from Tech Buffalo was here, we talked a lot about kind of the ecosystem of the tech industry, and how there's other places in the United States that are leaders in that area. Silicon Valley and Austin, Texas, for two of the top places, obviously. Where is Buffalo in the mix of that kind of tech trend in your eyes?
It's getting there.
Yeah.
They talk a lot about tech hub, mm-hmm. and having that sort of central part of the system where everybody gathers, where the innovation starts.
Yeah.
And Seneca One is becoming that type of place. That's been a big vision from all the way from Douglas Jamal and Douglas Development. Mike Whistler, who was the CIO of M&T Bank, came in a couple years ago and was really one of the people spearheading that. And just so many people across the city here that, really, from 2016 to 2020 had the vision, made it happen. Now 2020 to 2025 here is really where that vision comes to fruition. And then if you think about a wheel too, you have the hub in the middle and spokes stretch out all the way from there. So
Yeah.
Tech Buffalo, like you mentioned, is all about, increasing accessibility and inclusion in the tech ecosystem.
Yep.
Have a ton of support for them. They're doing some incredible work. Randy Harris, who's our CEO now at Lighthouse, was one of the co-founders of Tech Buffalo.
Oh, wow. I
and
didn't
is
know
still
that.
and is still highly involved in that group as well. So
That's
I'm
cool.
Really, really good friends with Cam and Sydney and Mary and Sarah, Sarah and DeMonte and Rachel and everybody over there. They're incredible people doing some incredible work. So, but to go back to that too, the hub and the spokes, that's really kind of what comes next, is looking at how can we reach out to communities, to students in colleges. They're doing an incredible job, and so many other groups too that I'll talk a little bit throughout the show, of making sure we can connect everybody from, different communities, from different neighborhoods, from the different colleges. And then that's really going to create this sort of attractive energy that you see with Silicon Valley or New York City.
So you mentioned some of the growth that you want to do and some of the services that you provide. What are some of the new things coming out of the woodwork here that you guys are excited to launch this year?
Yeah. The biggest things for me on the marketing front has been expanding our, podcast portfolio. So here we are recording a podcast, and we do a ton of that at Lighthouse too. Being in a services focused space, for us being, IT or starting to expand into talent and marketing services, so much of that is becoming, the phrase becoming a trusted partner gets thrown around a lot.
Yeah.
But, what's at the core of that is helping people learn something new, building relationships, building your network. We're using podcasts as an avenue to do that as well. We're using that as a way to help people really across our entire ecosystem just start to think differently, highlighting some fresh perspectives, people who are doing incredible work but might not necessarily pick up the microphone themselves, give them an opportunity to do so, and help ourselves learn in the process too. So that's a major big initiative for us. And then Claire Stroh, who's leading our Managed Talent Services program, is starting to launch that initiative. She's been on a really long listening tour, talking to lots of HR departments around Western New York, kind of seeing their needs, where she can support them and things like that. So that's going to support lots of smaller HR teams who typically are more, there's so much focus between compliance and payroll and the back office and all those types of things, that there's an opportunity to support marketing being part of this as well, but also so many different things that go into talent attraction, acquisition, and retention. And really looking forward to what that might become throughout the year.
Well, I'm excited too. And I saw on LinkedIn that she's releasing her own podcast. That's pretty exciting. I think that topic is such a really good one to focus on, because every single time I go on LinkedIn, I'm seeing the little green ring around people's names, or purple ring, whatever it is, that says I'm open to work. And it seems interesting that I feel like we're past COVID. We've been past the struggles that are the hurdles that were in the way originally. But now, what do you think those hurdles in Buffalo specifically are? Like, why do you think it's so tough to have people find work that they can appreciate these days?
Yeah, there's a couple interesting conversations there, and I'm going to break it up into two ways.
Okay.
So thinking about retaining entry-level talent that's coming up through the incredible colleges in our region, making sure that they have opportunities that could be larger career launchers and things like that. Looking at some companies being in the vicinity of Seneca One, obviously I'll go to M&T Bank, and they have tons of talent development programs for people who are fresh out of college and things like that. Those kinds of things are really a big part of some of those larger cities and their tech hubs, and just really the business community at large. So there's a need to focus on retaining college students. The other side of it is then looking at, building these bigger technology companies and whatnot. You're looking at who are going to be the people who are the senior leaders who are going to bring fresh ideas to Buffalo. And there's a lot of different factors that go into there too. You talk about attracting people who are senior VPs at, companies in New York City, Silicon Valley, things like that. How do you get them to Buffalo? That's a very different pitch than if you're talking to somebody who's a college student just starting out their career. These people have families. They're looking at, okay, how is this going to affect my entire family? How is this going to affect my kids? Where are they
Mm-hmm.
going to go to school? Where am I going to find a house? Which is a very big deal because it's
Yeah.
just in the news this week that Zillow named Buffalo the hottest housing market of 2024 because, hey, the prices here compared to the rest of the country really aren't that bad still.
Right.
So
Yeah.
lots of different factors right there too. And give a shout out to Invest Buffalo Niagara and the Be in Buffalo group that's really, pitching the area on a national level and showcasing what we have to offer to those types of people. So
Sure. Well, you see Buffalo is big on Buffalo,
mhm.
and there's murals and signage everywhere around the city that says, keep Buffalo a secret. But we really actually need to share the beauty of Buffalo with others because that's the only way that we're going to be able to grow and continue as a community to become and remain the place that we love. And I love the city. I've been here almost 9 years now.
Mhm.
I grew up in the upstate New York region, just out of the Adirondack Park, and for a long time, I didn't know if New York was going to even be where I stayed. But when my wife and I moved to Buffalo, it really became known to us that this was going to be our home, and we really love it here. And Cam and I talked about this. We discussed the idea of how important it is to get people from outside of Buffalo to move here for jobs that maybe didn't exist before, and that's the beauty of this tech boom, and AI is got to be a part of that, right? I mean. Give me your perspective on, or maybe how you use AI in your marketing efforts at Lighthouse. What kind of things are you seeing? What kind of things are you using?
Yeah, being a team of one, I have to really be conscious about relying on the tools that we have.
Mm,
Very fortunate to be working in an environment with a leadership team at Lighthouse that's willing to open doors and create opportunities
yeah,
to use some of these tools and things like that has been a big difference. It's very important to think about what AI enables me to do with the rest of my time
yeah,
with all that it saves.
mm-hmm,
Being able to edit a podcast in something like Descript and grab clips like that versus having to manually do it
yeah,
in an editor like Adobe or Final Cut saves hours and hours and hours. And that's time
sure,
that I need to be both, the high level visionary for marketing at Lighthouse and the tactical, hey, get all this content created and distributed, things like that. So really would not be possible to do all that without all those tools.
a one-man show for sure. I mean, you do great stuff. You've been someone who I've looked at and looked up to in terms of what you've done, over the last couple of years, with LinkedIn specifically, but just your marketing approach and, being a community advocate and, meeting people and talking to people. And just, it feels like everybody that I know that I say, oh, I just met this guy, Joe Ray, or I'm having Joe Ray on my podcast. Everybody knows who you are. So I have to give you kudos to that. You're doing
Thanks, buddy.
awesome stuff. So, talking about the idea of the tech community growing and, the services of Lighthouse growing, what is some advice that you would give somebody coming into the tech industry or somebody that's trying to find a job here in Buffalo? What advice would you give them when they're looking?
Yeah, I mean, first thing I would just say is a phrase I always go back to because I'm a big Ted Lasso fan: be curious, not judgmental.
Mm,
I think when you come in from a different industry, you have to be curious. You have to be ready to ask questions. You have to come in with a beginner's mindset and say, hey, whether any preconceived notions you have, any experiences that you've heard about from other people, really just come in curious, open mindset. That's been one of the biggest things that's been most beneficial to me. Obviously the rise of remote work during the last few years has been a big difference and changed the way a lot of us network and communicate. So
mhm.
getting out from behind your computer is one of the big things that really has benefited me and benefits anybody in this industry too. Whether that's working in the office and going down to the food hall for lunch and seeing who you bump into and can meet, whether that's going to community meetup events and things like that. There's just so much around the city as well, and there's so many people who are willing to help and to share their expertise. So it's a really beautiful thing to see. Then the other thing in here, thinking about our unique expertise and our unique experience, and nobody's paths are the same. So I really think that when people transition into tech from other non-tech industries, I think there's a lot of benefit there from bringing your unique experience. Myself coming from the sports industry, coming from education,
Mm-hmm.
I think there's certain things in there that have helped me transition in really well. And I think everybody's got different experience that serves them well.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody has their own journey, their own path. They come with different understandings, different perspectives, which is a great kind of pivot because you came from education and I actually came from education. So, and I'll share my point of view of it in a second, but what was the big turning point? What was the big change for you that was the catalyst to move out of the education system and more into kind of what you're doing now?
Yeah, I think the environment of being in education changed a lot after
Mhm.
COVID.
Yeah.
I think the experience of being in person 5 days a week with masks on, the job became so much more than just marketing, than just teaching, than just being in admissions.
Sure.
Everybody became, support system for everybody else, for other students, for other teachers and other staff.
Mhm.
It's a beautiful dynamic. It's a beautiful type of thing to be able to be a part of. I think tech offered an opportunity for growth and just kind of refocusing on my work and my craft and what I really enjoy doing.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of people who are doing that as well. So,
Yeah. You said something that really resonated with me. It's you have to love what you're doing. You have to really appreciate what you're doing. But I still love to teach and I love to inform.
mhm,
So, in a way, starting a podcast, being online and in the marketing world or sales in general, you're getting to teach, right? I love to lead with education. I love to lead with storytelling. I think to me, that's how I hear and understand and appreciate conversations.
absolutely.
But yeah, so it took a lot though. And having a teaching background kind of limited me to what I thought I was capable of doing. And every single year or month rather that goes by, a college degree of a certain, job qualification isn't necessarily needed every day for good jobs now. So there's a lot of different ways that people can approach it. And I think that when you're looking at what you want to do versus what you're doing, you have to find a way to get to what you want to do. And I needed something new, and I was able to get into the payroll industry for a minute. That was
hmm
kind of my leapfrog opportunity, if you will. And then I was able to find marketing where I can really be creative and challenge myself with learning something new, but also getting to teach something completely new, which is invigorating, right? I think that anytime somebody wants to transition what they're doing, if they're burned out or dried up in whatever opportunity that they're in, sometimes you just have to make the scary leap and take a lateral step or maybe even take a step back financially just to get yourself on the path that you want to be in towards the career that you want to have every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I double click on this for a minute? Because
Yeah,
this is something that I'm really
absolutely.
passionate about.
Sure.
And I really want everyone to listen to this too. The end result of having these careers, this work that we do, is fulfillment. And that looks different for a lot of people. And it involves a lot of things. There's fulfillment in the sense of we work to earn a living and support
Mhm.
ourselves and support a family. We work to utilize certain skills to do certain work that fills us up and makes us feel good inside, which is a big thing, part of being a teacher and so many other, industries out there as well. There's, we work and we might switch different jobs in different industries to support our health and our relationships with our family and our friends and things like that. Um, those kinds of things change very much throughout life, and that's okay, and that's a big part of it, and that's been a big part of a lot of my transitions as well. I started out my career in the sports industry and had a great couple of years interning with the Sabres and Bandits and working at Niagara University,
Mhm.
and it's memories I cherish for a lifetime, and it's incredible work, and you just got to a point where it wasn't fulfilling all those certain areas that I needed in my life. So I went to work for a great company called Haley Marketing for a year, and that fulfilled me incredibly in the way that I learned a ton that I never would have working in sports. I switched and went to Nichols because that fulfilled me being able to focus on one brand and, working as an in-house marketer versus an agency, getting to work at a school, making incredible friends, making incredible relationships there. That fulfilled me well for a number of years as well. And
Mhm.
Lighthouse is the place, and really what convinced me to make the leap there is it was a place that I saw had the potential to give me fulfillment for life. Uh, just the opportunity for career growth, the opportunity for impact in our city, the opportunity for being with people who genuinely feel like family every day, and in a good
Yeah.
way, not in like an annoying way, like in a really good way. Like I lean on these people for a lot of stuff. It's a really beautiful thing. But that's really the biggest thing there. Like I will never tell people if you're stuck in a career that you're just not enjoying. If you feel like you need to make a leap, go for it. If you really want to, sometimes we might have to work certain jobs because, financially we need to support each other, and that's, a different level of fulfillment.
It's all part of being on that path, though. It's a step
Exactly.
on the rung,
Yeah.
or the rung on the
Yeah.
ladder, rather.
Yeah. Like you'll go on every sort of like thought leadership, career development conversation, and everybody will say career paths aren't linear anymore, and they're not.
Mm-mm.
There's not the same incentives to stay on one track and promote like right on that track, like in a straight line for 40 years and then retire and go enjoy the rest of life after that. It's really a different equation today. And, hopefully that helps someone. So,
No,
yeah.
I mean, and it's great points, and I resonate with that because the fulfillment piece, relating to education, I was fulfilled, and I had such powerful relationships with some of the kids that I worked with. I always wanted to make sure that I was a support for them, so I poured my everything into that. And what I was honest with was when I couldn't give my all, I had to be able to make an adjustment for me.
Mhm.
And I had to be okay with that being for me, because as an educator or any service provider, really, you're giving yourself to somebody else.
Mhm.
And, it takes a lot out of you, and you kind of get burnt out sometimes. People joke about how good the schedule of a teacher is. They get summers off, and, they're done school at 3 or 4 o'clock,
But you're grading papers all weekend and after work and
It's
supervising
you're
clubs.
never off. Yeah, you're
Mhm.
never really truly off. I mean, the summers are great, but realistically, you're only building up this tolerable sense of, I don't know, it's almost like an armor, if you will, that you have to take in, an energetic armor. So there's a lot of elements that kind of go into those decisions, as you kind of mentioned. But anybody who's listening, just make sure that you're doing what feels right for you. And if you have to do something, you have to do something. Like I was in my 30s and had to take a part-time job.
Mhm.
I'd never thought in my 30s I would have been there. And then 6 years later, here I am really starting to try to do some new things. But if I wouldn't have taken that step, then maybe I wouldn't have ended here. So, don't always not do something because you think it's going to deter you. It might be the one side street that you really needed to take in order to,
Yes.
jumpstart your next step. It might have been a
Yes.
shortcut. So you never really know. That's awesome. You mentioned Ted Lasso, and I would be remiss if I didn't bring that
Yeah.
back up, because
Oh, yeah.
I am obsessed with Ted Lasso. I cried at the end of the last season. I really love that show. I think there's a lot of good messaging in there. I love the mental health approach that it takes, especially when it comes to high-performing athletes and coaches and people who you think are really happy and have it all together. They really kind of do a great job of bringing reality to that kind of idea. Tell me what's one of your favorite things about the show? Why do you love it so much?
I love that Ted was so great at darts,
Yes.
and that one scene at the end of the first season convinced me to become a dart head. So
Him
that was
and
pretty great.
Rupert playing darts,
Mhm.
being curious,
Yep.
right? That's what it comes down
Hits
to.
2 triple 20s and a double bullseye like it's nothing. Like
Oh, yeah.
barbecue sauce.
Yeah,
It's great.
it's incredible.
Back to a serious note. I think that's one of the first shows that I saw that really embraced the mental health narrative for men. And I think that really stood out to me. I think it resonated with me too, because of, showing the behind the scenes of the sports industry and that side. I think it was also just a very good, it was a feel good show, especially at a time, kind of going through the COVID pandemic when we needed a feel good show, and just genuinely fills you up inside.
You mentioned that it's a feel-good show, which it 100% is. It's a lighthearted show, but at the same time, it looks at the back end of sports, because it doesn't really focus too much on the actual game of soccer. It focuses on the people.
Mhm.
And for me, one thing I really enjoy doing is looking at personal growth and talking about stigmatic things with other men specifically, and asking people questions and relating things to my own life. And it never ceases to amaze me at how similar most situations tend to be. And not to, pigeonhole people into thinking that all men in their mental health is the same, but it's more alike than unalike. Would you agree? Like some of the problems that people face?
Yes, I would. I think that there's a lot of similarity in people's different experiences, and that's another reason why I think Be Curious, Not Judgmental is
Sure.
so incredible, because when you open yourself up to that, that's the only way you open yourself up to realizing how similar everything is.
Yeah. And you have to come with an empathetic lens, because if you can't appreciate where somebody came from and maybe their perspective or how they react to things, you're going to be leaving something on the table, because we all are versions of our younger self that we strive to become the version of ourselves that we want to be, that we chose to be, not the pieces carved out of stone that we were given. Start your life with all of the things that I did my best to teach you. We're formed and we're molded by our parents and our community and who we're around and our exposures.
Mm-hmm.
And we now, it's kind of exciting if you think about it. We have a chance now to start not from scratch, but from something that already exists. And there's a lot of great things that are built into our personalities or into, each person. But there's so many of those struggles that we have. And a lot of them, like I said, are similar. But the more we talk about them, the easier they become, and the more relevant, the changes can happen. And the easier those changes can happen. To kind of put a period in our conversation about Ted Lasso, I think that there's another really great concept that comes from that show that's one of my favorites. And I used this when I was working at Paychex as kind of like a motivational term for all of our sales team is be a goldfish. And the idea behind being a goldfish is a goldfish doesn't have a very long memory. It literally just swims and it forgets, right?
Yeah.
So we need to get good at forgetting things that happen that don't serve any purpose, and move on past that and just keep on chugging. Because if we just focus on too many things in the sense of what we did wrong or what we could get better at, then we're just going to end up doing nothing.
Yeah. Can we? Here, I'm going to interject.
Wow.
Take that for your podcast clip.
Wow. So yep. I couldn't have queued that up better even if I wanted to. So, Joe, talk to me about one way that you're currently working on yourself right now. It could be personal or professional.
Can I give you one of both?
Sure. I would love that.
Yeah. Personal is not giving myself a massive, lifting, exercise, weight loss goal for the year. It's 10 minutes of mobility work and 10 minutes of meditation. That's where I'm just trying to start from and stay simple this year. I was in the gym Thanksgiving weekend 23, so going into December. I was all hyped up. I was like, yes, I'm going to get ahead of this new year. It's going to be great. And then was doing an exercise and my back must have just been pinched at a really weird angle and went like 1, 2, 3. Ow, that really hurts. Something like that. So spent a couple weeks in the chiropractor getting that worked out, and then getting some exercises that I can do to start strengthening up my lower back, my core. Lots of things that are very common for people who work in technical computer-focused roles and they're sitting at desks all day. So starting to do some of that stuff. And then meditation, obviously, just for practice.
Yeah.
For mental health as well. And those times in the day when we all get stressed and sometimes just need to step away for a second and get some perspective and reset. So working on that this year, and aspirationally, I want it to be every day. Realistically, I know it's not. So I'm shooting for 5 days a week for both of those and going pretty well on that so far here. Obviously, we're only 2 weeks into the year, but 2 for 2 on that so far. What I'm working on professionally is trying to work past, I don't even really want to call it perfectionism, because perfectionism really is just like not being able to accept vulnerability. Perfectionism, like for me in my life, was something that I would say, I'm a perfectionist. Like, I'm taking too much time on this. I'm a perfectionist. Was really just me covering up the fact that I wasn't, willing to be vulnerable with showing what I perceived as less than perfect work to others. When in reality, a lot of the time, the thing that would have been more helpful is to get something, done quick, have it ready, and then embrace that vulnerability, share it with somebody else and say, hey, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, and go from there. And that's a quicker way to perfect work than just sitting with it until you think it's perfect and then going from there.
That's an incredible set of goals for one. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. And I think that what you said about being vulnerable is really important, because I think that's it's the linchpin in the concept of I'm not going to do anything until I'm perfect or I understand it completely. Or that's like, I started jumping into this podcast thing really right away. Like I should say, let me take a step back. I've been talking about doing this for about 7 or 8 years. It took me 7 or 8 years of fearing the level of vulnerability that I would have to show in order to start that I never actually did it. So vulnerability is the focal point of inaction, because we're so afraid of maybe not knowing what's going to happen, and maybe we're control freaks a little bit, or maybe we're perfectionists and we just fear not being great at something because we're maybe a little bit too insecure to face the music.
That's another place where I have to give some cheers to Randy for how he's kind of helped shape my environment at Lighthouse, that I feel like coming into a position that never existed before, leading a function of marketing that never existed in the form of having a person assigned to it at Lighthouse, was really not expecting this, and was really just pleasantly surprised at the level of, I think I'll call it psychological safety that I had coming in there, and the freedom to fail and things like that, and the freedom to not be perfect.
Mm.
And, talking about podcasts specifically too, last year we launched our first one live with Lighthouse. We did it in a format of LinkedIn Live and then sharing it on YouTube afterwards. And the first few were pretty good. They were really good conversations with really cool people in terms of like design and, how it looked necessarily. Some hiccups with technology, and 2 of the first 5 shows that I was going to broadcast live ended up not broadcasting live because of something not getting set up the right way, and me being like, hey, I'm really sorry. Like, this didn't go out, but here's the YouTube link to share with all the people who in your network who were going to tune in live. The ability to say, hey, I'm going to trust this individual, Joe, to go start this, to represent our company, to see the goal and the potential of what it could be, and to help me get through that, was something that I value immensely. And now we're at a point where, for lack of a better term, I know what I'm doing. And now we're starting to build out a podcast network that we have 2 shows live as of this week. We're launching a third, possibly by the time this is released, hopefully around there. We have a third one in the works.
Okay.
So we're very much looking forward to that. And, sky's the limit potentially from there, but never would have gotten to run if we didn't learn to walk and stumble a little bit along the way first.
And I can't stress enough, if anybody wants to try something new, you just have to do it. You can't hesitate, because it goes on the back burner and nothing ever happens. So I'm very proud of myself for taking that leap. I'm sure that you feel the same way about it.
Yeah, you should be, man.
Yeah, and thank you for that. I say that because that's something that I'm working on right now, is being proud of the accomplishments that I have made. And you mentioned it before, is like not minimizing kind of like what you're doing. Who knows? You always think, oh, who's going to want to listen to me? Who's going to want to tune in to the conversation that I have, right? But those are those self-deprecating feelings where you're just doing yourself a disservice. So being more proud of myself, loving the person that I am, those are the things that I want to work on this year.
Beautiful full circle moment.
Yeah.
We love to see it.
Yeah. Talking about something fun quickly. You just started playing pickleball this past year?
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me how you got into pickleball.
It's a beautiful full circle moment of its own, actually. Shout out to Mr. Damiani back at Amherst High School, who in the late 2000s had us playing pickleball as a unit in gym class in the winter.
Wow.
Never played it again until last summer when a buddy of mine had a little tournament in his driveway, and I'm like, wait, this game is great. Why did I ever stop playing this?
Right.
I played tennis for quite a while in high school, and then after, just recreationally with friends as well. And now pickleball is just a massive rage. So sports have just always been great to me in terms of being able to build relationships with people.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of throughout the year, having, different touch points just to see different groups of people who I might not see otherwise.
For sure.
Shout out to Slaber Wolves roller hockey.
I'm not really familiar with the roller hockey scene here in Buffalo. Is it pretty popular?
For the people who do it, they're very, very, very into it. For sure.
It's a niche sport, but the people who are into it are in.
Yeah, I got into it. Like, I played ice hockey growing up from 7 to 18, and then shifted into roller hockey. And I was playing again, going back to embracing vulnerability. shifted into wearing roller skates and was doing like full rink laps to turn around, and was real rough my first year there.
Yeah.
But was just fun, and an incredible group of guys who I've been playing with for close to 15 years now, and just really enjoy that. So yeah, I mean, roller hockey, pickleball's on the horizon. Going back to Seneca 1, they're getting pickleball courts, so
No way.
really excited for that.
Oh, I'm gonna
Yep.
have to. I'm gonna be sneaking in.
Yep. Whether it's roller hockey, whether it's volleyball, whether it's golf, whether it's tennis, whether now it's pickleball, it's just great to have those types of experiences to bring people together.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Do you think that your background in tennis was a big help in preparing you to play pickleball?
Yep. But being a tall dude, tennis is much easier for me too, because I can play fully standing up.
Yep.
And pickleball, I'm having to like crouch down into like a full squat and
Yes.
like trying to run around like that too. It's a very different experience for me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you need to have mobility a little
Mhm.
bit in pickleball. I will say I just started playing pickleball this year. My wife Stephanie is an addict already.
Nice.
Even more so than me. She's also better than I am, which I hate to admit, but we have a really great competitive energy, her and I, which is really fun. So we get, to play a lot. In the summer, we go to Mang Park and, out there in Kenmore. But, Village Glen has some really cool places. I don't know if you've ever checked out Village Glen in Williamsville, but
Yep.
they got, I think they have like 6 courts now, and they do like open play. Anybody looking for a good hobby to start, is pickleball is a great one. But I say that because as adults who formerly played sports, and maybe I'm sure you can agree with me, once you lose that sense of community and that sense of fun and youth of playing a sport, I feel that we lose a little bit of our youth, and we need that. It's like I get that out of, being a part of the F45 community, so shout out to F45 BlackRock, but community element of sport and activity and just like making yourself better is an incredible one, and it's putting people that are aligned together with, common interests. So get a hobby that is playing a sport. Get back involved with a sport that you played when you were younger, if you've stopped, and see kind of how that impacts your life, because I think it really will.
100% can confirm that I feel much different when it's hockey season versus when it's not. Just the act of having a game to look forward to every week, just having the time with the boys, getting active, feeling that that kid-like joy almost of thinking back to being 7 years old and the first time going to play in an ice hockey league, and it still feels that great. So
you just brought up a memory that I still see it to this day, and it gives me such joy. You drive by an event or sporting event, or you go to any kind of sporting event, and you see it's not even the game that's being played, but the kids on the sideline or under the bleachers that are playing their own little version of some game, either similar or different.
yeah,
And I was that kid where I was like, I was going to watch a family member, and I was sweating under the bleachers, and my parents were like searching for me when it was time to leave. And so that's a cool little memory.
no, love it.
But I want to shift back to Lighthouse for a minute. Community, as we've mentioned, is a huge part of Buffalo. Talk to me about some of the community-based things that you work on over at Lighthouse, or some of the community engagements that you guys have.
Yeah, just starting from the broadest vision, which really ties into our marketing strategy as well. A lot of that's rooted in one of our core values, which is be a lighthouse. And that's our slogan. We got the little wristbands. Be a lighthouse is all about helping people. You think about what a lighthouse did in its heyday. It was ships were coming in from the lake or the ocean or wherever. They needed to find safe passage through to where they go. They helped the ships. So that's very much our mentality, and that's really helped shape a lot of our marketing strategy too. That we're a lot more open than many other companies in terms of sharing our expertise and some of the skills and the frameworks and things like that help us operate successfully. I think that's one way that we choose to give back to our community as well, knowing that there's going to be good karma that comes back around, and the people who are the ideal people that we want to work with and who want to work with us will find us through the act of that and being unselfish with sharing our knowledge. So that's really the first way to give back to our community. In terms of more explicit like community service, because that does kind of fall into my role as well. The title that I kind of came into is the manager of marketing and experience. The experience was my nickname for a short little bit. Shout out Jason Gunnels for being the nickname king at Lighthouse.
Wow, that's an incredible nickname.
Yeah,
the
right?
Experience?
Yeah.
Joe the Experience Ray. Wow.
The Joe Ray Experience might need to be a podcast someday, but that's also too close to Joe Rogan Experience. So
Says who? Maybe he might.
I'll take over as the #1 podcast on Spotify someday with that name just by SEO and people
Absolutely.
searching for Joe Rogan Experience. and finding Joe Ray experience. Anyway, back
Yeah.
to it. Community
Uh,
service, I think, is something that Lighthouse as an organization is very supportive of people who have initiatives that they're passionate about
mm,
and need some extra manpower behind. So, having an unlimited PTO policy is something that comes in really well for people who want to do active community service and things like that. And it's a very supportive team that if you want to take a day and we have one member of our team who's very involved with Make-A-Wish and, took a day of PTO to work the radiothon and do the phones all day. And her other recruiting team members were able to help cover her work and clients and things like that. We have people who are registered to do the ice cycle event at Riverworks. We're starting a team, and I think a couple of us are going to be climbing in the Fight for Air climb
oh,
to support
cool.
American Lung Association at Seneca One. So those are all things that are able to be done because of the culture and the philosophy of how we work at Lighthouse. We're very involved in some very focused, community outreach groups, Tech Buffalo being one of them. And then we're members of the Buffalo Niagara Partnership as well. That does a lot as our regional chamber of commerce to lead a lot of important conversations. Randy was on not a podcast, a webinar with Buffalo Niagara Partnership, talking about the current H-1B process and the need for reform there so that we can open up another avenue to include more tech talent in our city as well. So that's another way that we choose to show up in the community. And this is also one of the benefits for the internal team that we have at Lighthouse that really helped sell me and say, yes, this is the place that I want to go. One of the benefits is that the company allows each employee every year to designate a charity or multiple charities of their choice, and will make a contribution from Lighthouse Technology Services on behalf of the employee to that organization. So I've been able to support some incredible organizations that I would not have been able to otherwise, in ways that I would not have been able to otherwise, because of that program. So that's a really beautiful thing, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
And then just goes back to, some of the community groups we're involved in that I mentioned earlier. There's always openness to other, kind of community groups and professional groups and things like that. The company and the company leadership is very supportive of people who have causes that do good for Buffalo.
So it looks like all of our lights are starting to shut off on us. So this will fit into a great blooper moment at some point along the line too. And one other thing that I wanted to mention about meditation specifically, you
Yeah,
talked
let's talk
about
about
that
that.
as being one of your goals. I have done a lot of work with meditation. I say a lot loosely. I've done it on and off for a few years. Currently off. It's a little bit tough to stay in the habit of things that are challenging,
Mhm.
right? And meditation is not easy. And you could even call meditation, being present, just sitting in your body, thinking about what you're thinking about, breathing, and just being still as you can. Not trying to block out all of your thoughts because that's near impossible. Anybody who has ever thought about trying it, give it a go. Don't focus on trying to empty your brain, but just focus on your breath. There's lots of different guided meditations out there. I think just sitting still, breathing, again, that's the key. What other advice would you give anybody just starting out?
The comparison that I always come back to, because I'm a Headspace guy. Everybody that's
Yep.
into meditation has their app,
Yeah, I've
whether
used
it's
Headspace
Headspace,
before.
Calm,
Yep, I've used both.
all those. The one visual that I always come back to from there is the little character is sitting on the side of the road on a rock and observing cars going by on a highway, which are made to reference that individual's thoughts. And what happens when we get into stressful situations and we're not present is the equivalent of that character jumping into the middle of the highway, trying to stop the cars, trying to make the cars go different directions, losing all control of everything because that's the only predictable thing that could happen when you jump into the middle of a bunch of cars on the highway.
Sure.
So meditation being the act of helping you learn to be more mindful, to get back to that rock, just to sit observing, noticing, let it pass, get back to what you need to do.
Yeah.
It's helped me a lot to ask questions of self-compassion as well. Helping me focus in stressful moments is helpful, just to simply ask, what do I need right now?
Yeah.
Which is, if you really stop and step away from everything, you can get really clear on a lot of things that'll help you just by asking that question. That's really helpful. But yeah, I mean, also just the act of like just getting in a chair and sitting with your eyes closed for 10 minutes is also good too. And we're staring at screens for 6 to 8 hours a day. So
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, just having your eyes shut, just being calm. And I really like that visualization of being on the side of the highway because it relates to the idea of what do we truly have control over? And if we don't have control over that, man, you got to let that go. You can't dwell over that. It's just going to drive you nuts.
Yep.
You know? So, Joe, is there any last minute message or anything that you want people to know about Lighthouse that you can really pass on?
I think we're trying to be the best example possible at an organization that lives by our mission, vision, and values. Our mission being to deliver the right technology and the right talent at the right time, which is a very specific business thing, but really comes down to we want to help businesses find the solutions they need. The vision that I talked about being the most inspiring business partner in Buffalo, not the best, not the first at anything. We want to be the most inspiring.
Yeah.
And then the core values too. So follow the golden rule. You know, obviously treat others the way you want to be treated. Be a lighthouse, all about helping people, guiding them to the solutions they need, which has informed a lot of our marketing. And then light up those around you. So infusing positivity and joy. So, you know, just I think people have a very positive reception and thought of us. And I really think that's important because we're in a services-based business where your word of mouth and your reputation is everything. And it's really important to have those principles to go back to.
I absolutely love that. Be a good person, treat everybody as a good person, and good things will end up happening. And always lead with value is an incredible set of mission statements to go by. Joe, I can't thank you enough for being on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking with you. Hopefully we can do it again sometime soon, but thanks a lot, man.
Absolutely, bud.